Oh, hi there, YouTubers. Hope you guys are all really well. I'm having a bit of a show and tell, really, and a bit of information on something I've found out very recently. Well, this week that I've done a bit of study on, a lot of thinking about on stabilising and stabilised timbers, and some of the work I'm actually doing at the moment. I've not been managing to get as the videos are not quite as prolific as they were. I've actually got pretty busy. As I've made no bones about, I would like to be able to turn this into a bit more than a self-funding hobby, which it's not even self-funding with the equipment I've had to buy this last year and a half. But I'd like to be able to get to the point where I feel I'm good enough that I can sell something on a regular basis, which means I can drop some time at work. Already had a word with my boss, bit the bullet and had a word. Not overly happy, but as long as I don't go mad, maybe drop to start with maybe a day a week. And I might be able to just keep things ticking over enough to make up that, or at least some of that, the money I'm going to lose and things, but at least the time that gives me to be able to come in here and have a day, I structure myself so I've got a day where I really knuckle down, and then through the week it's odd bits and pieces, so I thought I'm doing a little bit of a show where I'm at, because like I say, I've been really busy. The other week I did a bit of a talk one evening for some of the guys who've been asking about, it was really about knife steels and knives, how you make knives, and sharpening, and some of the things and my ideas around sharpening, not necessarily for a professional knife maker or somebody who's really good or somebody who does a lot, but a way of making it easier for people who maybe excuse me guys, don't do many. It's quite chilly out here this morning. Survival Russia, I would say. Ha ha ha, that's the summertime. For them it probably is, but when you're used to rather warm summers, this is a bit chilly and a bit foggy outside. I'm rubbing my hands a bit, it's a bit chilly. So I mean, the sort of things I've been up to is I'm trying to get some of every chance I get, I'm trying to work on my leatherwork and things like that. Something I have shown on a couple of videos is the little fire steel loops, and I've just, these are selling, I'm tickling along. Probably more my own fault for not getting a store or something set up, so I'm just putting them on Trade Me and people I know, but I'm just doing another set, so I say exactly the same again, my little handmade leather veg tan belt loop with the cord, the quick release buckle, and then I'm putting the little antler tops onto the ferro rods. I've shown them, and I say every time I get a set of these, because I do get them from China, don't make any bones about that, not only because I can't get them from bloody anywhere else, nobody will ship here, but every batch I buy, I take one out of that batch at random, scrape the coating off and give it a good go to make sure I'm not getting a bum deal or anything like that. And every one I've got up to press works. Like I say, the secret I've found with these is it's the steel you use to strike them. I've actually not found one of these that I couldn't make light a fire, unless I'm using something bad to scratch it and scrape it. It's Sunday morning. I've only had one coffee. So yep, so that quite pleased. Something else I've just done and I've started making, simply because I noticed, and these are double-sided sharpening strops. Now, I will be completely honest, I'm making them out of some spare ply that I got from a job I've done. But good leather. This is 3mm veg tanned leather that I've got on here. And I'm going to be looking at putting these on probably for $20. Now, an equivalent thing with a nice piece of beech, but other than that exactly the same, but with a nice piece of beech instead of a good thick solid piece of ply, which is never ever going to bend or shift, so you've got a perfectly flat surface. That's my rationale, it works for me. But I mean, you're looking at sort of like over here, anything $60, $70, and I'm going to be doing them for 20. So, hopefully find a market for them. So that's something else I've done. I'm not sure if I do put pictures up on the Instagram, Bush Bimbler on Instagram, so a lot of pictures go up on there, but I've just finally got around to doing myself a little, my little leather sheath for the pocket boy. So there we are, I'm looking at the picture so I can just make sure I'm showing what you need to see. But yeah, that's all finished. She goes, wet formed, all, the leather, obviously the leather in the case, finished as the same as I do everything for the knife sheets. The wet formed, Resolene on the inside, and then I use Neat's Foot Oil, Aussie Leather Conditioner, and then Carnauba to finish them off, to give them a nice protective finish. Exactly the same with the belt loops, double clip belt loop, and then so that it can actually be removed. 1, 2, 3. There we go. There's your little loop in there. So yeah, so very pleased. Very pleased. It's good. Anything I do, obviously, it's I can't just keep practicing making knife sheath, because until I finish a knife, I can't make a sheath for it, because I do everyone individually. So yeah, so I'm quite happy with that. But again, something else finished, and something I'm just pottering along one odd nights through the week and chipping away at things. Something else I've just finished is this for a friend of mine. You know, hope you like it, Nick. You better do. I made a cover for his Wetterlings and a refurb. It was pretty manky, I've got to say. Sorry, Nick, but it was pretty manky. But yeah, so hopefully that's showing up. Not the light above me, but yeah. And also, so I gave the head a good clean up and sharpened. So it's pretty good. I'm keeping running out of hairs, but takes hairs off. So that's good enough for an axe, I think. Cheers, and round. And again, obviously, all the same finishes go onto the leather, wet form, so they take some bloody time. Take some bloody time to do them. So that's where that's at. My knives, I've spent quite a bit of time. I've got 2 or 3 here. I've been doing quite a bit of grinding, just getting some of the higher grinds going. So as you can see on here, this is sort of like one of the models that I've working towards doing. So I've got 2 options for a combat knife for my lad. But again, they're sort of like the Wusk type thing, but on a much higher grind rather than just the Scandi, in case I prefer the Scandi. I'd rather make a Scandi, I'd rather use a Scandi, personally. All this about, you know, what the way... 9 out of 10, I think if you've got a Scandi and it's not working for you, it's because you've not sharpened it right. So, sorry guys, but that's my opinion. You know, but I'm sure, don't get me wrong, I'm sure there's some jobs out there they're not perfect for. I know that, definitely. And even little one there with a full height, just kept practicing and taking it so far, and then even, you know, really nice, I probably can't even really see, but nice even grind on both sides, and you know, the plunge is pretty even, so I'm getting, you know, really pleased with some of the higher grinds. It's practice, it's turning good pieces of steel into pieces of junk, but that's the only way to practice. So yeah, I've been doing some of them. Things I've actually got on at the moment, I have 3 or 4 hung up, and obviously it's like these, they're knives that when I have been practicing for whatever reason, or I've had a bit of a go at a template and things like that, and they've worked out and they've gone, so great. Obviously I'm not wasting anything like that, they go up on the wall, and then I've got a couple up there that have been hardened and tempered, and then a few that are ready, so if I do have a knife that I want to do, then I've got a couple that can go with it. So when I do my heat treatment, I'm not just doing one at a time, which makes it bloody expensive. I can actually put 3 or 4 in there, and I don't do more than 4 because I don't do enough. I'm not doing enough to manage more than that. But I feel up to 4, I can manage that, get them in, get them out, get them quenched into the little oven to get them warm and all that kind of stuff. So I can do that process really well, and I'm comfortable with that. So here we have. This is the one I'm making for my lad. This is G10 scales. I've made them specially for him. And basically it matches his stable belt. We had a lot of conversations about knives, and originally the original combat knife he was wanting was a lot bigger. I think I've still got a couple of ones that I'd actually ground out for him. But the more he's done, the more he's actually come back and said, you know, actually I want something more along the lines of a bushcraft knife, because that's all I ever use it for. All the guys carry, I mean, something like this. He said, all the guys carry, you know, big, stabby, whatever knives, he said, and they're just useless. They don't use them. I use my pocket knife. He said, but something smaller along the lines, and he's actually been using a Glock, the Glock knife. And he says, something like that, and that shape, but smaller, with the Scandi, which is really, really sharp. He said, that's what I want, because that's what I'm using every time I'm in the bush. So I thought, well, to make it a bit special, you've got the little cracker on the pommel. Like I say, it's 4mm steel. I've done a 30-degree Scandi to give it a little bit of a stronger edge for him, and custom made the scales, like I say, to match his stable belt. So this is at the point where it's just actually been cleaned down on the flats, and the sides are going, and I need to now just round this off, and I'm going to keep it quite simple. There's no fancy sculpting, it's more for just rough work and strength. I can't really see him sitting there whittling a spoon, to be honest. You never know, but probably not. So yeah, so that's really pleased with that, and the testing I've done for that. I had a couple. I think I did put one out. Oh no, I'm still making that one. I did a couple of tests on some of both on the bending the knives, and then I've got a bit of edge test. So I need to put that video together yet. I've got something else I haven't got around to. Another one I'm doing, actually, it's just clamped up here. This is for Simon, and he wanted a really short bladed skinner with a decent handle on it. And I've done, actually, this is the first handle I've ever done with antler. And hell, yeah, job getting antler that's actually thick enough for a full tank. I've got a load of stuff that'll make really nice scandies, but I've had a right job with it. So if you ever watched it, if you'd watched this, Simon, yeah, it's been a right bloody job. But anyway, that's clamped up, that's coming out the clamps tonight, and that's not far off finishing, and then it just needs a sheath. So that will be ready for the trip down to Ian's in a couple of weeks, well, 3 weeks time, that'll be ready for Ian's. So get your money ready. That's taken some bloody doing, is that, to get it all fitted and finished and just how I wanted it. Because nothing's straight. It's not like working on a nice flat block where you can get them really, really straight. Everything goes on the drill press, it works out nice. Everything's been done by bloody hand and eye, and it's been a pain. And I don't like the smell of working with antler, but anyway, looks like it's. I'm pleased with how that's come out for the first one I've done in antler. Another one just waiting for its handle now. Here we go. So Andy, that's going to be yours. Just a small hunter, but this is the same as the little hunter that I was doing, but I've done it in 3mm. So I've just bumped it up to 3 from the 2, and I think that's a bit of my psyche thinking bird and trout, keep it. But there's so little difference between the 3 and 2, but it just gives it that bit more, especially because Andy does a lot of deer, and I think a bit of pigs, so stuff like that. So it's just that bit stouter. But anyway, I think it feels quite nice. The weight feels just that bit more. So anyway, that's a 3mm little hunter that I've done, which seems to have gone down really well. Ulrich wanted, he comes over here for a visit, and there's an arborist, and he's into his fishing. But he wanted something for the fishing, but not a filleting knife. So what I've done him is this. 2mm, fine point for that, but big enough. But again, it's 2mm, 01, and it's pretty tough, so, decent handle on there. If it goes camping, over in Denmark, Sweden, places like that, it's enough knife to do a bit of camp work, but again, more aimed, nice and slim. It's 25mm by 2mm stock, obviously all hardened and tempered, ground up. So, and again, I've put a 30-degree bevel on that one, because if he's using it for cutting, filleting fish and cutting up bait, he's going to be going through bones and things like that. Just that little bit tougher on the edge. Like I say, there's nothing wrong with the Scandi. You can adapt the edge to whatever you want. So that's that one, all ready for the pins. And the pins, just up behind me up there. Am I pointing in the right direction? I am, right, bang on there, right there. There's 3 sets of scales up there. They've been, they're all having their liners clamped on at the moment. So that's the scales for these 3 in here. And the third one is my little one, which is a pucko. I wanted a pucko, but I didn't want a rat's tail. I know they're a bit lighter and all the kind of things, and they do everything you want, but I've got a couple cut out, ready to give a try in 3mm, and this one's 4mm. So all heat treated, 24-degree bevel, but 4mm, full tang, and that's going to be my pucko. Just an excellent little blade, and again, that continuous sweep, just a nice steady continuous sweep on there. So although it looks flat, although it's flat-ish here, it is, but it's angled down slightly. So you've got a long, steady sweep. So for cutting tasks and things like that, just much more efficient than something that goes completely flat. But completely flat's probably better for other things. But yep, so that's my little pucko. Again, that's got to the point now. The bevels have got to be cleaned up on this first. I'll clean all the bevels up. Then it's hand sanding the flats, clean the handles up, ready for the scale. So not far off. So that's the sort of things I've been doing and I've been at. I've actually got on the floor down here, I'll just pick you up and hopefully the leg won't fall off, and just down there we are, you can see I've got a set of scales in there ready. They've just come out of the oven this morning, they've been in there for a day, ensuring they were properly dry. Hope you don't feel seasick after that. So they're going to get stabilised. I haven't started that yet simply because of the noise it makes. But I find putting them down on the floor, it stops the vibration, it's a bit quieter. I used to do it on the desk, it drove me mad. I put it in the house the other week, and that's another set of scales. I'm trying to get a little stockpile of those up, because that's something obviously you do a bit for work. Get them cleaned up, go to dry, into the, and I can get on with other things while that's working. So, and I've been letting that slide a little bit. And on that point, stabilised wood. I'm just going to move these from here. That's a bit better, isn't it? I cleaned, and it was actually on the knife. I just showed you the little hunting knife. and I got the scales all sorted, and I was just basically, I don't know if you can see, I just had to drill in the holes. I was just, you know, putting the tank hole, the pin holes and things in this, and I put it onto one side, and I drilled it, seemed absolutely fine. And then put the little, you know, the little peg holes for the glue, and did the other side. And it wasn't until I actually went to put them together, so that I could start obviously checking where I want, you know, leveling the front up and things like that. And I put these two together with the pins in to hold it, and all of a sudden I thought, that just doesn't feel right. And I'm right, it's warped. They've warped very, very slightly, this pair. This pair actually slightly more. Now, I thought that didn't happen with stabilised wood until I googled it. And yes, it does happen. A lot, from what I can gather, potentially. But I think that the problem is it is winter here. These have actually been waiting to go onto a knife, probably for a couple of months. It's taken me that long. I did a batch a while ago, and I knew the knives that were coming up. So right when I did one, I did the ones that I needed for Andy and for Ulrich. So, which is these. But I haven't got around to doing the knives, and I've got doing other things and stuff like that. So these have actually sat in the workshop for the last couple of months. Now, my thoughts on this, because obviously when I have read, they've said, oh yeah, they can do, they'll move a little bit, then they just reflatten them and carry on. And they've just drawn that little bit of moisture in, and it doesn't necessarily have to go in far, just enough. Well, the moisture change is just enough. But I think because I'd actually sealed one side, obviously epoxied and pressed it all, sealed on one side, what's happened is, with them being in a damp environment, that little bit of damp's got onto the other surfaces on the outside, obviously, and that caused it to swell that bit, and that's what's just giving it a little bit of ash, because both sets have done exactly the same. And I thought, oh, now when I've checked the other stuff, everything was fine. And then I twigged, once I've stabilised anything, I put them into plastic, just that, it was really, I only did it to keep them tidy and together. That was the only reason I did it. But I put them in plastic Ziploc bags into my drawer, where I keep them. And they're all fine. And I thought, that's the problem. These are out in the damp, and the sides which haven't been sealed yet, and are still, I've cleaned them, they've obviously just been, had all the resin cleaned off and sanded off and ready to be, ready to be used. So my cunning plan will be, when I've got them handles done, will be to get them into Ziploc bags, keep them all sealed until they've actually been ground, and then sealed out, the outsides sealed. So if anybody is using handle scales and things like this, don't just polish them up. I'm sure lots of you guys who are bloody good at it out there, but I've made knives with stabilised scales before, and the only reason I've actually sealed them hasn't been because I thought it needed to be done. It was just simply because I use them a lot, and they get mucky and they get manky and all that kind of stuff. And it was more to just keep them looking a bit nicer, so I could, just put a thin layer of Danish oil on them. I've sealed them with Danish oil, and then every so often when they'll start to look a bit dull, I give them a really good clean up with really, really fine wire wool and another layer of Danish oil, and it just keeps them looking really nice. And I did it from that perspective. So thinking about the stuff I've got which I've kept in bags, which hasn't changed, and the stuff that I've used before, which hasn't changed, I think that's a problem. And when I've read about it, what Turntex, I believe, who supply all the cactus juice and all the the recommendations on how you how you do them, and the things I've sort of like read, and it's so obviously I thought, oh, somebody will say, oh, you haven't stabilised them right. Yes, I have. They're kept in my drying cabinet for about months. I put stuff in there for months until I'm getting readings on it of around sort of like 6 and 7. Now, if they're out here, a piece of wood on my bench out here give me a reading, and I don't know what the reading means, I just go off the damp meter I've got, will give me about sort of like normal timber, like household timber, I've checked joists under the floor and things like that, run out to about 20. If you keep them in a dry atmosphere, you can sometimes get them down to around 10. Stuff comes out of my drying cabinet, and until it's hitting about somewhere between 6 to 8, it stays in my drying cabinet. It then comes out and it gets a day. It's 24 hours virtually, roughly, in my little oven, which is what they recommend. It comes out of there, and basically the moisture meter, it's somewhere between 0 and 1. So they are bone dry when they're going into stabilising. They sit in they sit in the vacuum, and it's a full vacuum. It goes mad, literally boils it virtually. It's a full vacuum, and they sit in there for hours. until I'm happy with it, you know. And the one thing that will show you, what that does show you sometimes, is if you have got all the air out of them. Because if you're having to run your vacuum chamber for 5 and 6 hours, you've probably got your scales perfectly flat, because what he says is that any moisture within the scales at all, you know, so you're talking of like readings of 2, a reading of 2 on your moisture meter, or right into the timber there might be a bit of moisture in there, will continue to give you bubbles for hours and hours and hours. And in reality, it's because of the water, the moisture that's in there is boiling or bubbling or whatever. But they sit in there until I'm happy that I've got that air out. They stay in the resin then and I'll leave them for. I mean, I've noticed the level might drop, and it'll drop for the first, you know, day and a half. But then I just leave them. I have no rush, so I leave them. And when I get them out and I've dried them, I've baked them, I've cleaned them up, and I've checked the weights, and they go up. They're something like on average 1/3 and more. I use Rimo because it gives me a lovely. It looks a bit like oak. It's lovely wood when it's done. Crap without stabilising, too soft. Stabilised, it looks really nice, and it's tough. I've noticed some of the others can almost get a bit brittle because of the resin in them. That does a beautiful job. The Rimo, great job. It just seems to really soak it in. But it's nearly half as heavy when it's been stabilised as it is when it's dry. So it does work. So it's not that. It is the fact that stabilised wood can move. It's a natural material. And what Turntex says is that what the resin does is it soaks in, it fills the void, and it often gets into the fibres. But it doesn't necessarily, according to him, it doesn't actually give you a solid block of resin, because you've still got the fibres in there. And it's the fibres themselves that can actually pull that bit of moisture in, especially considering they're so dry. They're actually so dry you've almost got a piece of blotting paper, and so it can warp. Normally, what it says, it's compared to unstabilised piece of timber, the movement is tiny. It's a tiny amount of movement compared to an unstabilised piece of timber, and once it's moved, as long as you clean it down, flatten it again, seal it, that's it. You know, they're pretty. It's far, far, far better than not if you've got wood that responds well to it. You know, so that's just something to keep in mind, that if you are making these scales, once you've stabilised them, either seal them with something. Dunk them in a bit of Danish oil, boiled linseed oil, something like that. Take that out, let that polymerise for a few days. That should seal them. If not, put them in Ziploc bags and keep them in Ziploc bags. So that's what I will be doing with the scales. As soon as they've come off of there, and I've got as soon as the resin is dried, they'll come out and they'll go into Ziploc bags until I need them, and I'll use them. And I'm going to just to double check that way, mainly because that just saves me having to, like say, soak them in anything and then leave them for days. I mean, bearing in mind, even boiled linseed oil can take 3 or 4 days to fully polymerise. Danish oil I think is a bit quicker, a couple of days, 2 or 3, a couple of days I find normally. If it's fairly warm, if it's cold, it can be 3 or 4 days. So that's just some thoughts to keep in mind about stabilised timber. It's not perfect, and if you are using a knife with a stabilised handle and you're using it in a wet environment, every so often dry it off, get a bit of Danish oil on there, a bit of boiled linseed oil. I mix mine 50-50, so you just a small bottle of boiled linseed oil and a same amount of white spirit, turpentine, which I think what it is I use. What do I call it? Over here they call it mineral turpentine, it's called over here. I have to Google that because I couldn't find the white spirit, but I think basically mineral turpentine, I believe, is white spirit. 50-50 with that, so you'd have enough to last you, and you can do your axe handles, everything with it. It gives you a beautiful finish, doesn't come off tacky. As you can see, this hasn't been shined up, there's no shine on there. It was just cleaned up, de-greased, de-gunked and everything, and then literally the solution just rubbed on and rubbed on and rubbed on, and then wiped off. That's all it needs. So it's a hint on keeping your wooden handles nice and tidy, very cheaply. You don't need anything fancy. I was at a game show the other day. Field days we call over here. Field days, a bit like the CLA Game Fair for you guys in the UK or Europe who know the CLA Game Fair. And I went past one of the stalls they were doing, and they had a lot of the silkies. Love the silkies, awesome, love them. And they were selling camellia oil. And bottle of camellia oil, $20. Buy baby oil, paraffin oil, bottle of baby oil, $2.50 for the same amount, and it's absolutely works on your stick. Any knife that I use I tend to just carry that, but any knife that I use that could go anywhere near food or anything like that, baby oil goes on, it sticks, it doesn't sour like vegetable oils, keeps the moisture off them, Axes and things I tend to use gun oil. That sticks to the steel better and you're not going to use it on food. But knives, all my knives and stuff like that, any carbon steel, I just use baby oil. And it's what is it? 1/8 of the price, 1/10 of the price of camellia oil, and it does just as good a job. And you can mix it with a bit of Dettol and you've got a brilliant 50-50 Dettol and baby oil. Awesome insect repellent, absolutely fucking awesome. It's the best thing I've used. Oh, sorry for swearing, guys. So I'm going to get off because I'm going to get some bloody hand sanding or something done because my hands are cold sitting here talking and talking and talking. So thank you for your time. That's where I'm at. That's why a lot of stuff hasn't been coming out. In case anybody's wondering, you guys, Julian out there, you know, with your doggies and everything, I'm still not getting out and about a lot because between doing this and then Ben, my little Springer, who's my little mate in the bush, he's still got a bad leg. 3 months now, and he's getting better. He's actually starting to walk a bit better. We've had him to the vets virtually every week for the last 2.5 months, having injections and things like that, trying to get his knee done because if we can't get the ligament in his knee sorted, he could be having an operation, and we don't want that because that's just going to slow him down even more. That might not be a bad idea, actually, slow him down. But so I just haven't been getting out doing the bushcraft, but hopefully, if the weather, although the weather looks atrocious next weekend, might be up to Wairi next weekend, a night out camping, bit of hiking, camping, hunting down there, and then another trip to Gisborne, which is where I showed you the last video, the camping video I did, get down there, but that'll be more of a hunting weekend and a guys' weekend, because I think hopefully Dan's going to join me, so I need to get some knives done for them. So with that, I'm going to knock off, and I'm going to start some hand sanding, then I'm going to go get breakfast. So you have an awesome Sunday. It's my Sunday morning. And thank you for your time. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to my verbal dysentery as I ploughed on. And like I said, subscribe, like, Instagram for Bush Bimbler, Bushcrafting NZ on Facebook. And like I said, catch you on the next one, guys.